I'd like to go back to Christopher Dye's challenge yesterday, looking at how do we use these new technologies, whether it's social reporting, whether it's, data collection by mobile phones, whether it's something like GigaPen, and actually use it not only for sort of the people who are average people with cell phones, in villages, etc., but also the people who are collecting data as their job, the health workers, etc. And how do we use this not only just in an emergency basis, but actually to replicate and enhance what's already being done now, which takes so long, like the way Clay described it yesterday, going from point A, then to point B, point C. Every time it gets transcribed from paper to paper, put into the database, you lose, someone's handwriting is illegible, you lose so much of the data that way, and then by the time your data finally gets to you, you've lost half of it, and it's, 6 months later. So I'd really like to sort of put that as the challenge to the group as, we move into sort of separate breakout groups.
Erica, that point touches on and just sort of synthesizes so many themes that have been discussed both yesterday and today, and it gets to this notion of familiarity of the technology, and that you want to have information flowing all the time. If a bad thing happens, then you have an existing system you can fall back on. We at INSTEAD are very focused on crisis, and whether it's a tsunami or a outbreak of H5N1 influenza. But to that end, we're working with in Cambodia right now with local healthcare workers in the Ministry of Health to put in daily reporting using these systems and coordination of the teams, so that when something bad happens, they're already familiar with it. They already have the trust. They have social networks in place that the technologies are embedded in, and they have baseline data. So,
I think this also goes back to something that Kazi said earlier today, and that we've seen a lot of tools and a lot of projects this morning, and I think it really goes back to that innovation of trying to figure out on the ground how we can put these things together to have the most impact. I mean, this project that I presented, GigaPen, we're doing it through education, but one of the reasons I really wanted to present it here was I think it can be done in so many other different situations. I mentioned that it was done for, the Hurricane Katrina, and you can really go in and assess things. People on the ground can take a GigaPen, and then if they have that connection to upload, people in other locations can assess the data, so the data is not lost, and you can go in and really take your time, because when you're on the ground sometimes, it's harsh and difficult circumstances, and you don't have all the time in the world to assess how many houses were knocked down, because you might not be in a safe location the whole time. But if you take 5 minutes with this, people in Geneva, in New York, in the capital can look at it. So I think we have to think more innovatively in how our different projects and technologies can be melded together, work together, and improved. The final question was over here.
Hi, good morning. I've been a little bit concerned of the constant use of the word inclusion, and I was really happy to see these 3 presentations because they're moving beyond inclusion and going into participation, which is really what democracy is about, I think. So thank you for that. But I also wanted to know, are you actually working together? Because all the 3 projects that we just saw really make a lot of sense, especially with regard to, for example, census and data collection operations. It would be really interesting to see organizations like, for example, the OECD, who are working directly with some of the African bodies in census and data collection. They do need innovation, and for example, in Ethiopia, we had a really big challenge in the census, the last census, where we had a few of the provinces in Ethiopia, which are pastoral. We couldn't use GIS systems that had been purchased at huge costs because of governance issues. People were concerned that the populations would be, it would be too intimate. They would see too closely what people were actually doing in their homes and in their lives. And so it would be interesting to see this discussion taken further at the governance level and so on. So,
Eric and I are planning to work together through the Open Mobile Consortium. Yeah. The GigaPen is an inspiration, so be very interesting, perhaps in the breakout sessions, to think about ways we could mix and mash these and other technologies. And I should probably just note, before we go into breakouts, we probably need to let these folks have a coffee break. So,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I just want to conclude quickly, just to answer the question. Yeah, I mean, I just saw these projects today for the first time. I went onto the internet a few days ago, but I was really pleased with the teaming up here, because I think it offers a lot of possibilities. But really what I've learned, and this is now my third Web for Dev conference, is the reason I keep coming back is it's one of the few opportunities I have to really listen and learn and see how other projects might be applicable in my office in Geneva and UNESCO. And I think, and I hope that's what everybody's getting out of it, even if we don't, in 1 year's time, have achieved every single actionable point that we set out at the end of this conference. At least if people can get together and somehow move forward or add in additional components to their project, then I consider it a great success. So maybe we stop for coffee now.
Yeah, good.
Okay.